Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the Belmont Saga, Part 2, Chapter 23, The Sandwich. Now, before I begin, I'm going to go on a rant. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dyspepsia piss me off! I hear there's emergency meetings at the hallowed halls of Lucasfilm that people are being called in from their palatial estates across the country and the world to come in and let the suits at the C-suite of Disney and Burbank know what the hell happened. Well, how could you not? Who could have not predicted this shit 2 years ago when they announced that frickin' Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the most annoying Brit since Prince Harry, was going to actually star in this show, and Indy is going to be relegated to like a Sala role, like a useful sidekick, while Phoebe Waller-Bridge, another Kathleen Kennedy goddamn insert, steals the show. Who would have thunk that the woman who gave a frickin' reach around to Solo a Star Wars story and then gave James Bond the modern audience treatment would fuck this film up so hard that nobody would want to watch an arrogant, sleazy, snarky bitch run Indy into the ground, and people go, oh, they're gonna love this character. How empty are the suits at the C-suite in Burbank to not see this coming? Pay me $1 million every quarter, and I would let you know that this film is going to tank. This film is going to piss off people who have been watching Indiana Jones and Saber in junior high. At least the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is no longer the turd of the franchise. The turd is before us, and it is the Dial of Disreputation. Okay, rant over. I apologize for my profanity. It's just, can't they tell when a person is hurting inside? Anyways, last week, Paymaster Stenstrom took it on the lam with his reams of bullshit papers and decided to get out of Dodge and Calvert and get to Ibana. Unfortunately, Ibana does not have any offices in Calvert. It's just not posh enough, not regal enough. So he has to head at least 1,500 miles to the west to the Xenon city of Mercia, and that's where the nearest office is. Problem: Calvert is crawling with black maidens at this point, sent from Belmont Manor, and he really can't go anywhere or hang out in plain view too long, or he's going to get nicked, and all of his arcane protections are gonna fall flat. And to his luck, he runs across a group of pilgrims of Marion who are gathered in the square trying to sell some goods. Apparently they're wagons, they're float wagons. Gotta throw that science fiction touch into it. The float wagons. The float wagons are broken down and they need to pay for them. However, Marions don't have any money. And they're getting jeered and heckled, and this lout comes up and tries to assault one of the Marion girls. Stenstrom, being the hero, takes action and sends the lout packing. And then he asks the Marions, well, how much do you need to fix your wagons? And they said 1,000 Solaris. And Solaris is kind of the standard currency of the League, although every part of the various worlds have their own currency. Everything is judged against the Solaris. So they need 1,000 Solaris. Fine. Stenstrom reaches into his coat, pulls out a few notes, gives them 1,000 Solaris, and they are very grateful. And then he has an idea that his mother will never suspect him, or the Black Maidens will never suspect him riding along in a wagon full of Marians, so he hitches a ride, and they're happy to take him to Mercia. Along the way, he contacts his mother on a really old, crappy terminal, just to let her know he's okay. And she's uncharacteristically meek and tired looking. She's in bed, hasn't eaten her breakfast. She says, "You need to come home. You know, I might have messed up putting you to all these blood promises. I might have screwed that up, and I lament that. And I wish I would have just let you do what you wanted to do, but it's too late for that." And he says, I've got a few gentlemen to call on, but when I conclude my business, I will indeed head home." And she says, "Well, make it fast, please." And he felt kind of bad for his mother. He thought, well, maybe I should just let a Black Maiden take me, zap me right back home. We could talk it out, and then I can continue. But then he sees, weird creatures following the wagons at a distance, and he's like, well, mother, you almost had me fooled there. You're still playing this game, so I will play this game. So it's on to Mercia. He gets to Mercia, goes to Ibana, shows them his bullshit papers, and the person looking at them immediately spotted them as such. But fortunately, being a member of the Bones Club, which this guy in the Ibana also is a member of, he lets him in. Says, "Fine, what do you want to do?" "I want to be a fleet paymaster." "Fine, we will find something like that for you." So he goes off and he's hanging out with courtesans, female company that he can mask his scent from the Black Maidens for as long as possible. A few days later, Ibana contacts him, says, "Hey, we got a ship. It's a frigate named the Sandwich, and they need a paymaster because their previous one died of quote-unquote food poisoning." Well, in the League of Elder, in the Stellar Fleet, a frigate is a pretty small, crappy ancillary ship. It's not a warship, not a warbird, nothing glamorous. It's just a ship that needs to do things that the fleet needs doing. It's important functions, but not very glamorous ones. And a frigate is a very small ship. So this small ship, the Sandwich, their paymaster died of food poisoning, and they need a new one. So Stenstrom's like, "I'm your man." So that's where we are. Part 2, Chapter 23, The Sandwich, and we're gonna be introduced to this ship right here and now. Again, I apologize for my anger. I apologize for my profanity, but anyways, let's proceed immediately. He had to admit he was a little disappointed when he first saw the Sandwich sitting in the water at Adelia Dock. She was little more than a flying wreck. An ugly Myrmidon-class frigate assigned the lowly role of hauling fleet freight, refuse, and assorted goods back and forth across the League. The Sandwich was a squat and saucer-shaped and in desperate need of both painting and a fumigating. She was, at one time, white, but was now a patchy, unidentifiable red, with the few outer millimeters of her thick, tough hull rusted. The capsule-like bridge, sitting atop the saucer, looked rather like a virus implanting its DNA into some unsuspecting bacteria cell. Still, she was a fleet ship and was going to the stars. After taking a moment to get used to her meager shape and rusty hull, she became like a magic carpet, ready to speed him away to adventure. The bosun of the Sandwich, an untidy man named Pike, was waiting for him on the gangway. He was terse and unpleasant from the get-go. "You shall confine yourself to areas of the ship assigned to you, namely, your office, your quarters, and the crew's mess. You are forbidden from entering the bridge, period. You shall not under any circumstances enter or dine in the officer's mess, and nor shall you eat in the crew's mess during peak dining hours, unless you choose to take your chow to your office or your room or wherever, and fuck off there appropriately. You shall be allowed on the boat deck for 2 hours a day at times so designated by myself or the captain. You shall be assigned 1 crewman as an aide when their duties allow. You shall not fraternize with the officers or the crew, and you shall not be permitted to sit in at the nightly film. Just remember, you're on this ship, but you are not a part of it in any way. Do your job. Make sure we get paid, hide our expenses if you can, and be quiet about it. And with that warm welcome, Stenstrom boarded the ship, walking up the bouncy gangplank. He could smell the heavy salt water in the air by the wharf, and he could almost hear the sandwich's foot-thick Duraplate hull rusting. He looked back over his shoulder. The black maidens were just arriving on the dock, sniffing the air and swaying slightly. Moving through the small, poorly lit corridors of the ship, Stenstrom found himself a bit appalled. The ship was a mess. Dirty walls, peeling paint, marred floors, and the crew was little better. A motley in the extreme, mismatched uniforms in various stages of serviceable repair, filthy shoes, tarnished buckles, paunched bellies, and unshaven faces. The crew, full of dirty looks and second glances, were also inked up in an assemblage of gaudy 4D tattoos and the images of naked ladies, obscene gestures, grotesque body parts, and varied profane verbiage spelled out and occasionally misspelled on their arms, shoulders, faces, and necks. As he descended further into the bowels of the ship, he was painfully reminded of the 2 times he'd been on his father's ship, the Caroline, and the difference between the 2 was night and day. His father's warbird was a brightly lit paradise of gleaming metal, spotless appointments, ramrod crew, shaved faces, and rigid discipline. In comparison to his father's ship, the Sandwich was a veritable cave populated by a squad of unwashed, stinking cavemen. He found his tiny cabin, which appeared to have been a bathroom at some point in the past, and he went inside and wondered if he really wanted to be here. He could de-ship, avoid the Black Maidens, and return to Ibana and announce his desire to wait for another, more serviceable vessel. The thought passed through his mind several times. There was a knock at his door. A young lady stood there. "Hi!" she said in a cheery voice. "I'm Crewman Callie. I've been assigned to help you." Stenstrom was pulled from his gloomy thoughts. He regarded her for a moment. Again, as with most things on this ship, here was a lady standing in the doorway, presumably a member of the crew, without an ounce of military bearing or protocol that he had assumed was a staple of the fleet, no matter the ship. She could have been a lady walking down the street, a co-ed at school, a waitress from Onaris, or an urchin from Calvert. Anything but an active crewman in the Stellar Fleet aboard a commissioned ship. Still, unlike the dirty looks he got from the other members of the crew, this crewman Callie smiled in an inviting and genuine way. What the heck, he thought. He stood and held out his hand. She shook it. "Wow, strong grip," she said. "I like that." Callie sat down on his small bed and began talking. She appeared to be a real yapper. "I man the forward sensing station on the bridge, a day bell. Between 10 and 12 bells after my ship, I'll be down here to help you out." Callie studied him intently. "You're a lot taller than our last paymaster, and a lot more handsome." Thanks," he said, not expecting the compliment. "So, you're a great lord from Cana?" "I am," Stenstrom replied. What house? Not that I'll know what you're talking about or nothing. I'm just curious. Belmont. Officially a Belmont South Tyrol, an offshoot branch. Callie's eyes lit up. She had fascinating green eyes. I have no idea what that means. We don't see many great lords on this ship. Our last paymaster was just some guy. I didn't know much about him. I think he was an attorney. I don't like attorneys much. You're not an attorney, are you? No. Callie was relieved. Well, that's great. So what do I call you? I'm not well versed on Canaan customs and such. Do I call you Lord or Sir or Great Lord? I really don't have a clue. Call me Belle. All my friends do. Okay, Belle. I'll do that. You're sort of alone on this ship. No other great lords around. I mean, other than Dunks. Do lords from Planetfall count in the social scheme, I mean? Planetfall is where Dunks is from. We're pretty much all Johnnies here. I'm from Fig on Onaris. Who's Dunks? Oh, he's our commander. Sorry. How long have you been in the fleet? 5 years. I didn't score too well in my exams and got stuck with ship duty on a frigate. When they don't know what to do with you, they put you on one of these ships. It's okay. It pays the bills, I guess, and we're pretty informal around here, if you haven't already guessed. That's a perk, I imagine. I'm told every ship is the image of its commander, and Dunks is an informal kind of guy, and so are we. I've got a big family to help support back home on Onaris, and a deadbeat ex-husband who I have to pay for by court order. I guess that's why I don't like attorneys much. Yeah, I think I'm gonna like you. You're a heck of a lot better looking than the last guy. Did I mention that? Stenstrom was mystified. I believe you did. Will my superior pulchritude be a plus in your assisting me in the ship's financial matters? Oh, yeah. I hear tell the previous paymaster died of food poisoning. Is that correct? Well, yeah, I guess so. Stenstrom tried to make sense of that as Callie chirped away. She seemed a happy enough person, smiling. She had stunning eyes and a piled-up head of messy brown hair, held in some bit of order with a pink hairband. Her skin was a pearly shade, and she had nice bone structure. She saw his chest full of books. What are those? She asked, looking at the old brown covers. They're just old books. The pipes overhead made a loud hissing sound, and Stenstrom could hear many doors clanging shut. His lights flickered for a moment. Oh, Callie said. Looks like we're about to take off. You want to come see? To the boat deck? The bosun said I was forbidden to go to the boat deck, except at designated hours. Oh, don't worry about him. He's a knob. Come on. Taking off is always my favorite part. She led him down the cramped corridor, up a gangway, and up 2 decks. There was the Sandwich's modest boat deck, just a long corridor lined on one side with windows. They went to the glass and looked down on the wharf. There was a jarring clank coming up from the bowels of the ship. Any moment now. The engineer's just building up pressure, Callie said, as the people on the wharf began to back away from the ship. Stenstrom looked around and felt weak. He remembered his father and the stars and the trips to Onaris, he and Lyra running through the manor halls playing with their models of the Caroline, and he remembered the knife in his chest, the clothes burning in the fountain. So here he was at last, standing on a fleet ship, ready to blast off. The journey he'd taken to arrive on this rusty old vessel. He leaned against the glass. Hey, Callie said, looking up at him. You okay? He smiled. I'm fine. I'm just fine. I've waited a long time for this. Yeah? She said. Well, welcome aboard, Lord Bell, Lord of Belmont. I really think I'm gonna like you. I'm glad you're here with us. And the ship lifted away from the wharf and slowly soared into the heavens. Stenstrom stood there on the boat deck for hours. Callie had left some time back, and he stood alone, the occasional crewman passing by idly. He watched the sky turn to black and Cana fade away. He stared at nothing but little speckles of distant stars, barely able to take it all in. Footsteps came clanking in approach. A slender man in a fleet coat was walking down the corridor holding a triangle hat under his arm. He saw Stenstrom and stopped. "Are you our new paymaster?" he asked. Stenstrom turned. "I am." The man smiled and held out his hand. "Well then, glad to know you. I'm the captain of this ship, though my official rank is lieutenant. Lieutenant Dunkster's the name. I'm from the House of Karoo on Planetfall. Just call me Dunks." Stenstrom took his hand and shook it. "Stenstrom, Lord of Belmont, South Tyrol. Please call me Bell." Lieutenant Dunkster thought a moment and tapped the felt of his hat with his fingertips. "Isn't there a Lord Belmont in the fleet?" "Yeah, Captain Stenstrom of the Caroline, right?" "He's my father." "A warbird captain's your father, and here you are, a paymaster? What's the story on that?" "No story. I just never joined." Lieutenant Dunkster looked a little dubious. Well, I'm certain we'll be fast friends in no time. It's a good ship here, good crew. Might not look like much, but we manage a decent service. Frigates. In ancient times, a frigate was a term that meant warship, a small warship, but a fighting vessel just the same. In our modern fleet, however, a frigate is nothing more than a small ship relegated to small duties. But somebody has to do this job, and I might say we do it pretty well, and I pride myself on always managing to get my mates a little extra coin come payday. Our fleet earnings are a travesty, you'll see. Have you met Callie? I assigned her to you." "I have. A very nice lady." "You like her? I mean, I can get someone else for you, if you want." Stenstrom was puzzled. There was something fishy going on. "I like her just fine." Good. Well, if you change your mind, let me know. Well, I've got to find the bosun. Good meeting you." "And you." They shook hands again, and Lieutenant Dunkster continued on to the aft of the ship. As the first few days rolled by, Stenstrom began to get the hang of the ship. He could move around fairly well through the tight metal interior, and he'd met most of the crew. Most ignored him with a weathered scowl, while others looked at his nice clothes and seemed a bit jealous. He was obviously a man of wealth, a man beyond them socially and financially. His duties as paymaster were quite simple. Come payday, the money rolled in from the fleet and dispersed to the crew. He just had to validate it and witness the computerized transactions. He was amazed how little they got. It didn't seem fair. Every day, Callie came down to his office after her watch ended and logged him into the ship's lists, he not having clearance to access them on his own. They would then go through all the ship's transactions, and he would validate them as OC, observed and correct, and send them on. His newly won knowledge of forged documents and his experience in hiding money from his mother instantly told him the transactions he was looking at were faked, cooked, doctored, call it whatever you will. Clearly, Lieutenant Dunkster, the mate, and the bosun were trying to hide money by moving it figuratively from one pocket or purse to another, and it wasn't much, just a few coins here and there, but it added up and was fairly clear to see if one knew what to look for. Once he validated them, the documents were sent on to the fleet, where they piled up in a dusty database somewhere and were probably never looked at again. Callie saw him puzzling over the documents. "Something wrong, Bell?" she asked. He thought about it a moment. No. He validated the documents and sent them on. Perhaps it was an error. As the days went on, the errors continued, always the neat little tricks, the missing coin or two here, and the extra money piled up there. It became obvious that there was more money floating around and exiting the ship than was coming in. Lieutenant Dunkster, the mate, and the bosun were up to something shady. Some of the crew had to be in on it too. The dirty, mistrusting looks he got walking the corridors hadn't abated. In fact, they'd gotten worse. He wondered sometimes when he headed to the chow line or the showers if he was going to get jumped. Let him try. They'd have a sore surprise coming. He could handle himself against this sorry lot any day. Callie seemed to be his only friend. She tried at first to be aloof and standoffish, but her friendly nature won out every time. She chattered about her home on Onaris and her friends, and she peppered him with questions about his home and his house. 29 sisters? Wow! Her tendency to give tongue to her random thoughts made her appear to be a scatterbrain, a real ditz. In truth, such was not the case. She had a good head in there, just somewhere, but didn't simply act like it. She appeared to be incapable of being anything other than herself, anything other than genuine. Her visits were the happiest parts of his day. He'd become genuinely fond of her. After 2 weeks, he decided to level with her. Callie, tomorrow I'm going to speak to Dunks. About what? She asked, a little alarmed. About whatever it is he's doing here on the side. She turned a little pale and didn't try to deny it. Clearly she knew. I don't think you want to do that, Belle, she said. I'm sorry, I must. I'm bonded to be honest, to report what I see. I want to know what he's doing. If he's running illegal goods and pushing things that harm folk, I'm not going to put up with it. She sat there and looked sad. Stenstrom headed for the door. Where are you going? She asked. To the mess to get some dinner. I'll bring you back something. He went down to the crew's mess and grabbed a tray, feeling eyes on him as he did so. He selected some chow and 2 cans of gasol and headed back to his cabin. He was in for quite the surprise when he got there. Callie was in his bed, covers pulled up to her bare arms and shoulders, her clothes scattered on the floor. Her voice changed from her normal perky one to a more seductive, low-pitched drawl. Why don't you put down the tray, close the door, and come to bed? Callie, he said, holding his tray, what is this? She smiled. I'm just doing my job. And like I said, you're a lot better looking than the last paymaster. I actually want to have sex with you. I've been thinking about it a lot over the last few days. I was wondering when it would come to this. She pulled the covers aside, and there she was, naked and steaming. A strong smell came out. She'd applied the weed. It began to cloud his head. Callie, we needn't do this. Please put your clothes on. She looked a tad hurt. Don't you like me? I like you just fine. Then come to bed. I'm not gonna come to bed, Callie. I spoke to the captain the other day before we blasted off out of Adalia. I got the distinct feeling that sexing me is part of your duties. Am I correct? She sat up, staring at him hard with her lovely green eyes. It is. Though again, it's one duty I was looking forward to. Why are you to serve me in such a capacity? I'm certain such a thing isn't standard fleet practice. Her smile faded. You're on a frigate, Belle. We both are. We do what we have to do. And I think I'm a little insulted. Sex is something we share on Onaris. To reject me is a huge slap. Do you think I'm beneath you, Lord Belmont? Is that what you think? Am I not good enough for a great lord like you? Don't call me that, Callie, and no, I don't think such a thing. I consider you my friend. Friends have sex on Onaris all the time. No big deal. You really must think I'm ugly. He sat down on the bed. She sat up and put her arms on his back. I think nothing of the sort. I just don't feel that having sex would be properly honoring you at this time. Belle, she said with a hint of desperation in her voice, do you know what could happen to me if we don't do this? If you go to the captain? No. What? What could happen? I don't understand. She looked like she wanted to say something. Go on, Cowie, you can tell me. You have my word as a great lord. I won't think ill of you, and the word of a great lord is something you can depend on. He stood and got her the can of gasol he'd brought for her from the mess. She took the can and tossed it back. I'm supposed to have sex with you, she said, swallowing. We should have been having sex days ago. All the other fellows I've been assigned to took me right away. I was starting to think I'd lost my touch. But why? To keep you occupied? To keep you from asking questions? Why? She finished her can and stifled a burp. You've seen by now how little we make. To supplement our purses, we do a little extra on the side. It's no big deal. All frigates do it. What extra on the side? He asked. Well, I don't want to say. It's no big deal. But you're not supposed to know about it. Why not? Because you're not part of the crew, and because you're bound and notarized to be truthful when questioned, and, in your case, because you're a great lord. I don't want to say any more. It's not a big deal. But if I can't keep you in here, if you start snooping around, I'm going to get in serious trouble. I could just disappear, you know? Stenstrom took her empty can and put it on the desk. I certainly don't want to get you in trouble, Callie, but I can't just let Dunks carry on. What if he's pushing something that's hurting people? I would never party myself to something like that, Belle. Honest. Please, it's nothing. Nobody's getting hurt. If he was hurting people, if he was pushing mags or remax or something like that, I'd turn him in myself. Look, I know I talk a lot, and I know I say out loud pretty much anything that rolls into my head, but usually everything I say is the truth. And what we're doing here is harmless, small potatoes. We're just trying to get by is all. She stared at him. And I was also hoping to share an open relationship with you. I'm not a whore, if that's what you're thinking. Of course not. Though the sex ploy seems to be lacking a tad in sophistication. Oh, yeah? She said. It's always worked before. We stick with what works on this ship. So, you can assure me that none are being harmed by whatever it is Dunks is doing? Yes, yes. Stenstrom gave her hair a toss. Oh, fine then. I trust your word. Don't worry about it. I won't go snooping about. Especially on Wednesday nights. Fine then. On Wednesday nights, I'll just linger here, eat my dinner, and look at the internet. Am I still invited to share your evenings on Wednesday nights? Well, certainly. I was hoping you'd ask. We can talk. Or hit the net. Or we can have sex. I really want to. She put her hands on his face. Perhaps another time. He stood up and got his tray and began eating. He froze. In the mirror opposite the bed, he thought he saw a shadowy figure standing there. It reached out for him with clawed hands, and he jumped back. Belle? What is it? Cowie asked. What's wrong? He turned to the mirror again, and the figure was gone. Even in the middle of open space, his mother's servants pursued. It was time to get out his gear. Well, nothing, he replied. I need to unpack a few things. Would you like to help me? Oh, Belle, come on. Well, okay. You promise we'll do it later after I've helped you? Sure. Cowie sprang out of bed and wrapped herself up in a sheet. Stenstrom pulled out his chest of books. She knelt down and looked at it. What's this one? It's got a funny lock. Stenstrom considered his words. Well, you've shared a secret with me, Cowie. Now I've got one to share with you. Yeah? A secret? What is it? You promise not to tell? I promise. I'm an enthusiast in seldom studied arts. Callie, that chest is full of my arcane learning and instrumentality. Her eyes got wide. You mean you're a magician or something like that? Yes, after a sort. Cool, she said. Can I see? The chest is locked tight, right? She tried the lid. Yeah. He reached out and put his hand against the lock and then pulled his hand back. Try it now. She did, and the lid opened easily. How'd you do that? Is that a trick lock or one of those neat palm sprander locks on Baz? No, it's a real lock. No lock can deter me for long. Can you teach me that? Well, maybe later. Can you bring me the wooden box within, please? Callie, still wrapped up in the sheet, tentatively rummaged around in the chest. You mean this one? She said, pulling out a brown wooden box. That's it. Bring it over here and open it, please. Callie brought it to the desk and carefully pulled the lid off. Inside was a silver device. It looked like a tall candlestick with a recessed pan at the top. She pulled it out of the box and stood it up on the desk. What is it? Stenstrom reached up, waved his hand, and placed a black holy stone in the pan at the top. Callie gasped. What is that? How'd you do that? She asked. It's a holy stone. It shall alert me if demons should come near. If you're going to be helping me, Callie, you might as well know that certain creatures not of this world are after me, and might well tear my soul apart, should they catch wind of where I am. Okay, she said, staring at the black holy stone. Does that prospect disturb you? She thought a moment. They're coming for your soul, right? That's right, yes. Just yours? Not mine? Just mine. Nope, I'm fine. I'm good. And with that, we conclude Part 2, Chapter 23, The Sandwich. So, Paymaster Stenstrom is introduced to his disgusting ship, the frigate Sandwich, a little saucer-shaped vessel, rusting, smelly, full of uncouth, unkempt people. But he decides, what the heck, I'll do it anyways. The crew doesn't seem to like him much. And it's obvious that the captain, one Lieutenant Dunkster of Planetfall, is up to something. As he sees the ship's finances come and go, he sees more money is coming out of the ship than what's coming in. He knows something fishy is going on. And then Callie confirms it when he says, I'm going to go speak to Dunks. We'll see whatever it is he's doing. Callie tries to seduce him. And she wasn't successful. Stenstrom's too honorable. And Lily is his lady. So Callie's naked body isn't having that much effect on him. And she says, well, I it's my job to keep you from snooping around. That's part of what I'm supposed to do. She's supposed to be having sex with him to keep him occupied. And he's like, well, I'm not going to put up with whatever it is he's doing. He could be hurting people. And then she says, no. It's just, he is doing something, but it's just small time potatoes and nobody is getting hurt. If he was hurting people, I would turn him in myself. And she mentions mags and remax, and those are different types of remax is a drug, and mags is like a gift enhancer that people abuse and overuse, and it's something that's a problem in Zaffin space and in some parts of the League. He says if he was doing these things, I'd turn him in myself. I'm not that kind of person. What he's doing, and we're all making a little extra money off of it, it's nothing. It's no big deal. So whatever it is he's doing is a mystery at this point. Well, he trusts Callie. She's earned his trust to some extent. And he says, fine, I won't go sniffing around. And then he admits to her that he is a Tyrolese sorcerer and that some of his mother's creatures chasing him seem to be a little angrier than just black maidens. They seem to be more sinister than that. And he says, "Oh, I've got creatures pursuing me that might do me harm. You know, does that bother you?" And she's like, "Well, it's just you, right? Not me, just me." "Oh no, I'm fine." So we've met Callie, we've met the sandwich. So next chapter, chapter 24, a stain on his soul. So we will explore these things a bit further. And we're getting close to the end of part 2, all that resists him. And then we will be in part 3, the demon that came for his soul. So we can look forward to that. Until then, and once again, I'm sorry about my unbridled passion when it comes to Indiana Jones. That's just the way it is and how it goes. Until next week, this is Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren. Peace out!